fine, because most players are going to be smart enough to check your expansion after they set up their own. So you know, if you get into, you know, if you're finding that your counter expansion isn't working, kind of check your defense of it. Make sure you're not doing anything. Make sure you're actually like building some towers and not just letting them come in and cancel it. Fav went straight to tier 3, and his initial plan in this game is to go ahead and mass destroyers. Because they're flying, and because they're in general pretty decent units to build against Orc, mass destroyers end up being a pretty good choice for tier 3 for undead on a large map like Lost Temple. There's really a few things. One of the neat things about starting out with ghouls is that you have quite a few options against Orc. You can start getting fiends at tier 2 and get web, and then get like frenzied ghouls with fiends with web, and that actually does pretty well against wyverns, assuming that you can force a fight before he gets way too goddamn many of the things, which is not something that you're really able to do when you're playing on Lost Temple. So that's, I think, one of the reasons Fob opted for getting some destroyers in this case. You can obviously go for mass destroyers, and you're going to try and go and like do the good old burrow rape thing. That actually, Fob I don't think knows that Zhout went straight to tier 3 and decided not to expand until just recently. But that doesn't work either if your opponent fast techs, in which case he probably will be able to get the armored burrows. The Orc has an upgrade that allows them to get from their burrows are normally heavied armor, and they have an upgrade at tier 3 that lets them change all that to fortified. The same thing applies to their towers, and destroyers which deal magic damage. Basically, before the upgrade, they'll deal 200% damage to those burrows, which is why destroyers can kill burrows so fast. Whereas once they get the fortified, I think it's something pathetic like 30 or 35%. So destroyers aren't going to be useful against burrows anymore once your opponent fast techs to tier 3. Also, they don't do terribly well on a large map, because it gives your opponent a lot more time to get that tier 3 tech and get that upgrade there. And also, just if the travel time where you're running across the map to go kill his burrows, you end up wasting time. He's got more time to expand and set up a big army and things like that. So Undead basically, you know, doesn't have a whole lot of good options on this map, Lost Temple, which is why most people consider it to be kind of imbalanced in the favor of Orc. But it's don't be too discouraged, because it gives you a chance to kind of play it, fooling your opponent or trying something new. Normally, Undead is not a good idea to expand at all, but on this map you're kind of forced to, so you get to experience sort of a different style of play. Fav is creeping here, which is typically not, you know, it's also something that typically Undead isn't going to want to do for very long, which is leave your opponent alone and go creep. That used to be the vogue thing to do a long time ago, where you get fiends and you'd power up your heroes really high and nuke the hell out of your opponent. However, in most cases, really any of the other 3 races can counter that by expanding all over the effing place and building a huge army, so that, you know, even if they get their hero levels up pretty high as well, because they can actually creep, you know, as fast as you can, if not faster sometimes. Okay, battle going on here. Fob has an incredibly small army. I don't know why he doesn't just town portal outright here. He probably should have. He wouldn't have lost an obsidian statue, but, you know, I guess you can always try just running away and see if your opponent backs off. Oh, I take that back. I think he may have ran through that path to take a look and see if if Zhao had expanded yet. Although I don't know, he didn't really see it. So yeah, he probably should have just town portaled right away. At this point in the game, you're not going to have much chance of fighting against Orc. That's fairly typical, which is why it was a good idea for Fav to get an expansion up with like several towers at it. Having done that, he's got, you know, he can play a little bit more laid back here. He can afford to town portal away. He can go creep for a bit. Zhao, meanwhile, has decided to, you know, Zhao didn't really go the economy route this game. Sometimes Orc players will expand all over the freaking place. If you sense that your opponent is doing that, you need to build shades. Fav in this case didn't really have enough spare lumber because he's been using his ghouls fairly aggressively. So you can actually scout a bit with the ghouls too, but ideally, if you get the sense that your opponent is in any way expansion happy, you really need to start building shades. Otherwise, he can expand all over the place, build a whole bunch of towers, and we all know that is not fun at all to deal with. Let's see. The game, to be honest with you, there's not really that much going on right now. Well, okay, there is. Fav has decided to do something interesting here. He's building. He actually added a third crypt, and he's going to start massing guards, kind of as a last-ditch attempt to try and counter the very, very large air force. I mean, that is just a crap load of wyverns that Zhao has built. If you guys listen to Freak's audio, I believe it was number 274. It was the one a couple before this one, and you should listen to it because it's Orc versus Undead, and he's covering the Orc side, but he gives a lot of good tips for Undead. One of the things you can do at early tier 2 is pop out a couple of Gargs. You only want like 2 or 1, and use those to kind of keep his wyverns under control. That's going to force your opponent to start building bats, and they usually have to get like 3 or 4 of them because 1 or 2 bats actually doesn't quite cut it against gargoyles. And actually, there's about to be a battle, and I think I'm going to have you guys pause it, put it at the half speed before it's going to happen. So get ready for that. Let's see. Here it goes. Yeah, 3, 2, 1, pause. All right, I am at 1759, so try and get you guys synced up at that, because I'm gonna talk in detail about this battle, and I want you to put it at 1/2 speed, so that we can really watch what's going on as this gargoyle army squares off against an Orc army that basically at this point isn't expecting it. Until like just a few seconds ago, I don't think Zhao had seen Fav's gargoyles at all. This gargoyle strategy is not something that you want to just do like as your default strategy, because if your opponent sees it coming, he can get plenty of bats, and plenty of bats pretty much will kill gargoyles. But let's watch what happens when the gargoyles are not expected. So at half speed at 1759, get the game unpaused in 3, 2, 1, unpause. Alright, first thing Fav does is he takes his destroyers and he sends them all the way to the other side, away from his gargoyles. I believe what Zhao was doing in this case was he was trying to bomb one of the destroyers with the bat and let the splash damage hit the Gargs. Either way, that wasn't a terribly good choice, but it's always a good idea if you've got both destroyers and gargoyles to get your destroyers the hell away from the bats, because there's going to be splash damage going on, or just get your destroyers the hell away from the gargoyles. There's going to be splash damage going on, and you really don't want both the destroyers and the Gargs to get hit by it. So whichever one your opponent decides to attack with the bats, at least the other thing won't be getting killed. Now this looks sort of like Fav lost this battle because he does have to town portal out. However, if you looked at the army sizes before it, Zhao went from like an 80 supply army down to a 50, and Fav went from like a 60 or 65 supply army down to a 50. So that battle actually went very good for Fav. Okay, so I don't bore the crap out of you good people. Let's go ahead and